Hey, BassGeek here, and during late May, early June, there can be so many ways to catch bass power fishing on moving baits. But in a lot of the country, the shad spawn can be over or ending, and that means the shad are beginning to move out of the creeks and toward the main lake, and the bass are moving with them. And even on days like today with the worst conditions, a high pressure, bluebird sky, dead slick, calm, ultra clear water, this traditional rig catches big bass. So we've been out on the lake today and the shad spawn is still going on, but it's starting to wane. Now, two things that can happen even if the shad spawn is in full force wherever you're at is when the sun comes up, the shad will pull off the bank. The bass will pull off the bank too. And a lot of times they're going to be setting in very specific areas. Not very deep, but they'll pull off enough. And when you're faced with conditions like we're faced with today, clear water, high pressure, high skies, no wind, we threw a lot of different baits, but the bait that started producing for us was a bait really, or a rig really, you don't hear anybody talking about that much anymore, and that is the good old Carolina rig. When the going gets tough, the Carolina rig is still the original sonar. And what you'll start to see, whether the bass are moving out and the shad spawn's over, or whether the shad spawn's going on and they're just pulled off the bank for the day and they're done spawning, is the bass are going to set up at a certain depth. And when they set up at that certain depth, all you have to do with the Carolina rig is throw out there straight in front of the boat and bring it back to you. Little pulls, let it set, let it rest. Because remember, they may not be in full chase mode, but they probably are going to be a lot more active than you think. Now, let's say you don't have any graphs and you don't know what depth level they are. 45 or even 90-degree points, secondary points, or anywhere where there's some sort of change in the bank contour. In other words, if I go from chunk rock to mud, I want to target that chunk rock area and the ends of those transitions, where it goes from chunk rock to mud, where it goes from chunk rock to boulders maybe. Those are the type of things that I'm going to pay attention to if I don't have graphs. You can catch a lot of bigger bass on a Carolina rig when the shad spawn is over in the mornings and pulling out. And then you're just going to work your way back out of the creeks as the shad goes. So once the sun comes up, pick up a Carolina rig. Now, let me show you a pretty unusual bait. A lot of people do this in clear lakes, but I don't think a lot of people talk about it. All right, geeks, there are a ton of baits that you can put on a Carolina rig that's going to get you bites. From swim baits to crawls to centipedes to hellgrammites, you name it, there's a ton of baits out there. But like we were talking about today, in these conditions, when the bass are faced with high pressure, bluebird skies, dead slick calm, ultra clear water, it's really hard to beat a stick bait. And this is one of my favorite stick baits. This is actually the X-Zone True Center Stick. Now this, you can do a lot of different things with it, but one of the cool things about it for you guys that love to wacky rig, one of the biggest reasons you should try it, is because there's actually a section that is designed to give it the actual best action. So you can wacky rig it and it is going to get the most action on the fall. It's going to get the most action whether it's weighted or unweighted when it's wacky rigged. But this worm does so much more. It is incredibly soft, it sinks very well, and it has incredible action whether you wacky rig it or, like us today, you're Carolina rigging it. One of the things I like to do when I'm Carolina rigging is making sure that I come well past the knot so that I'll get a little bit of lift in that bait as I'm pulling, gets a little crazy action, and then I just let it sink with that incredible action and wait for the bass to pick it up. So just a touch about rigging. Weight really is based on depth and speed. So I like to move mine a little bit faster, especially when I'm, searching. So I'll put a little heavier weight. I'll go a 3/4 to an ounce. I've got a 3/4 on here because we're fishing all the way out to 20-25 feet deep today. Now I've got a little bead on there, but it's mainly to protect the knot. You can also put a bobber stop on there, but a swivel, of course, is important. Now, one little touch on rigging. The more lift out of this worm, the lighter wire hook you want to go with. I've got a 4/0 because I'm fishing for smallmouth, and smallmouth, they can sometimes just come up and grab it by the tail. So I want that hook to come back a little bit farther than a 3. But if I wanted more lift out of it, more action out of it right now, which really I don't, I'm going to go with a 3/0. And if I really don't care about action, I might even go with a 5/0 on this. Color. Now when it comes to color, today especially, I wanted something with a little shad color to it. And the reason why is because the shad spawn is just getting geared up here. And what we run into today trying to find the shad spawn was that the shad and the bass had moved off the bank and they were out there just a little bit deeper, hanging around on stumps and rock piles and that sort of stuff. So I wanted something that's not going to be just green pumpkin or whatever color, whatever solid color. I wanted something that really had a shad profile to it. And that's why I picked 309 in the True Center Stick from Exxon Lures. One of my other go-to colors, especially if I'm wacky rigging this, and especially around bluegill beds, that's watermelon candy. And I don't know what it is, but there's just something about a green pumpkin blue flake that gets these smallmouth lit up. So two other colors that I really like a lot, and to give you a little bit of a comparison, this is the 6-inch in summer crawl. Really a great color around those smallmouth. And of course, you gotta have a green pumpkin black flake in the 5-inch. So we're fishing a predominantly smallmouth lake today, so we're definitely going with the 5-inch, but there is the difference. That 6-inch is a girthy worm, geeks. So when it comes to the Carolina rig, especially fishing it out in deeper water and heavier weights like I like to fish it, fishing a little bit faster. That's one thing about the Carolina rig. It really doesn't have to be a slow drag. Up your weight, up your speed. But you're going to need a rod and a reel and the line that's going to be able to handle that. This is a rod that I have had a long time. This is the TFO Tactical Elite. I think they're called Tactions now, but this is a 7'3", and I do like a longer rod on a Carolina rig. If you have a longer leader, so anything from 7'3" to really 7'6" generally is where I'm at. This is a heavy, fast action rod, so it's going to be able to handle this Carolina rig, and it's going to be able to handle those awesome swing away hook sets. And we're going old school on this too, man. This is an old LFS. I have had this forever. Man, this thing from Lew's, I mean, I don't even know how many years. I've probably had this thing 10, 11, 12 years. And you talk about a workhorse of a reel, that's what this is. Now, I've got it on 6.8. That's maybe a little bit of a lower speed for this. I would probably go up into those mid 7s. That's where I would go with a reel. Now, when it comes to line, look, get away with the lightest line you have to. And leader, I just use the same exact line for the leader. I don't really downsize. You can get complicated that way, and that's fine. But for me, I try to use the lightest line that I can. So I'm going to use anything from, say, 15-pound test if I'm not around a lot of snags and rocks and that sort of stuff, all the way up to 20-pound test. Rarely do I go over that because it really begins to start affecting the action on the lure. And the line that I'm always going to use on this is going to be K9 Pro 100 100% fluorocarbon. Now, when it comes to retrieve on a Carolina rig, it's one of the reasons why I tend to go with a heavier weight. I like to move the bait a little faster if I'm covering water. If I'm in an area where I know there's bass, I am definitely slowing down. So I may go with a little lighter weight. That's a little adjustment you're going to want to make. But generally what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the longest cast I can. I'm going to reel up until I feel the weight, and then I'm going to keep the rod tip down, and I'm just going to slide that bait. Just a little ways, you know, maybe a foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, really depends. Just enough to get that bait to move into a different position. And I'm going to keep doing that repeatedly. Now, when you feel a bite, and what you'll do is you'll feel some weight, you'll feel, you know, thud. Make sure you reel down and you swing. Keeping that rod tip low, you're going to swing and you're going to side set. Go ahead and keep reeling that fish in. Remember, there's a lot of weight, there's a lot of stuff that can swing around out there that can cause you to lose this fish. So fill his mouth full of water, get him in the boat, whether you have to boat hop him or whether you put him in the net or on your thumb. Whatever you got to do, you get that bass in the boat, because that is a lot of weight out there swinging around. And you've got multiple failure points with the swivel. All that being said, geeks, another great bait that you can go check out from X-On Lures is the new sizes in the whiplash shad. You need to go check that bait out right here. Questions, comments in the comment section below. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell. Be part of the 100% Watch Squad. And you geeks rock.